We are on the air, and let's begin the meeting of the Rules and Regs. Hello, everybody, especially those on Zoom, because really, it's just Jerry and I that you see, but the other two are really there, correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
You have 4 out of 4.
4 out of 4. Okay, the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the August 8th meeting. Could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from August 8th meeting.
Jackie?
I second.
Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye. Yes.
Jeff, are you there? Okay. He abstains? Okay. All right. Okay, so then the next thing, we've got a couple of, I think the charitable giving thing is a new one, correct?
Yeah, so we have 2 new ones that we haven't potentially talked about.
Okay.
So let's talk about the Charitable Giving Committee. So on this one, in working, and I have this on the screen, in working with the Charitable Giving Committee, we decided to really completely revamp this policy. This policy was originally created back in 2017. It's had a couple of minor adjustments, but not much. And as the committee has grown and they've become more experienced and they have several years under their belt, we decided now was the time that we just had to really just do a complete rework on the whole policy. And so where normally we would present you a red line, it just wasn't practical because the whole thing would be redlined.
Gotcha.
So we just said, forget it, we're just gonna, here's the brand new version. And we tried to keep as much of the original as was there, but we've added additional criteria. The requesting organization must be duly organized, validly existing, and nonprofit organization in good standing. That actually is a repeat that was from the original one, but we tried to narrow down some of the requesting organizations aren't specific just to Bella Vista. And we had that language in the original policy, but we felt that we really needed to take it a little bit step further, because you get a lot of organizations that they're really Northwest Arkansas, not Bella Vista specific, or they're, Northwest Arkansas or Benton County, or Benton County selects McDonald County or something like that. So we just try to really narrow that down more. And then we added that they had to have 501c3 status, and they have to show us a letter of determination, which is from the IRS. Yes. So it's not just some group that says they're charitable, they have to actually prove it. Also, we've had a couple instances where the organization that was asking for the funds, they actually give out funds. And so we're giving it to one and then they give it out. And so we don't have any control as to where they distribute the funds. So, and we want to have that control. The original and ongoing goal is to benefit Bella Vista. There's a lot of outstanding charities out there in the world. We have no issue with that, but we want to help Bella Vista charities specifically. And so if we give it to an organization and we don't have any control over it, and it goes to somewhere else, which may be very, worthwhile, but it's not in Bella Vista.
Right.
Can't be political. That has always been in there, political or religious. We don't go down that road. We added this to avoid people that are looking for loopholes. To qualify for the grant, the nonprofit organization must comply with all the above criteria, both by the wording of the policy and the spirit of the policy. So we're trying to say, look, you might, and we don't have a good example, but I'm sure someone will come up with one in the coming years. But maybe they qualify under all these criteria, but they still, in the spirit of it, don't qualify.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Doug, can you help me out at all? Or
Is that an attorney term?
No, it would not be an attorney term because it's not defined. Really, we haven't defined it in the policy. So it's basically gives the committee another opportunity to say, I'm sorry, while your cause may be worthy, it doesn't fit in with this policy, or the reason for the POA board giving this money for Bella Vista charities. It just gives them another opportunity to say, we don't think.
Try again next year or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just confusing.
We're just trying to give, I'm going to echo what Doug said. We're trying to give the committee tools that they can use to say, no, we're not going to give you funds here. Because unfortunately what appears to be happening is just about every organization that requests get something. And there's been times that the board members have cornered me afterwards and said, was that really a good use of our funds? Right. And so let's tighten it down. And so we're just trying to give them a couple additional tools. And then we go into the grant application process. This is what we've been doing for several years, and we've just detailed it out, the step-by-step. And so this will hopefully help Jessica when she receives requests and has to go and explain to them in detail, okay, it's a once a year. No, sorry, we're not giving it at Christmas. Nope, we do it once a year, and it's usually in June. And you submit your application, and they meet. Oh, I want to meet with the committee. No, they don't meet. So this allows us to say, look, we have a very structured methodology of doing this. So it's good communication.
Could you go back up to
Yep.
to there? Okay. You don't ask for use of funds. You don't define, because a lot of grants, you have to be specific about what you're going to use the funds for.
So we actually discussed this at length at the last committee meeting, and we can actually absolutely add that. But in talking to some of the charities, their challenge is, the charities know that people love to give their funds for this. We're going to put in a brand new basketball court at the Boys and Girls Club, and we need funds for the basketball court. And that's very specific, and it's motivating. But in talking to the charities, sometimes they're like, we know it's boring, but we need to pay staff.
Yeah.
We need boring stuff like that.
Operating.
And we need operating funds. And so we didn't limit it on here because we know that there's some organizations that need just operating funds. And is that a bad thing? It's not as glamorous as the basketball court that you put your money towards, but it's in some ways equally important.
No, I agree. It's just that I'm not usually when I deal with grants, it's usually specific, and then you give a report on it at the end of the time, and to make, so it's fine. I'm just wondering why that's not there. Not that I think it should be.
And during the application process, there's a place for them to describe what the funds are for, and,
right.
And that gives the committee, again, another opportunity to vet that and make sure that they're using it appropriately too.
Okay.
Gives them some leeway.
Just.
So that doesn't mean it can't be changed.
No.
We're just
No.
trying to give the committee
And
more
I'm
flexibility.
Thinking about it, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And we don't think we need to make it too cumbersome.
Yeah. So that's,
So, while we're asking questions, can I ask one about a prior point? How are we ensuring that the money that they receive is not given to somewhere else?
I didn't hear.
What keeps them, how do we know that they haven't donated it to somebody else?
How do we ensure that they don't?
That they
donate it
don't.
To somebody else.
Well, the first thing is we're trying to eliminate that. Is it possible that an organization receives funds from us and they don't use it in the appropriate manner? It's possible. I mean, it's possible, but in most cases, we're dealing with known entities, meaning we're dealing with the animal shelter, we're dealing with the TV station, we're dealing with a courtesy van. We're dealing with known entities, and that makes me feel better that I know the funds are going where they need to go.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answer your question, Jackie.
It was one of the points that you highlighted going through there, that we want to make sure that it stays within that organization. So I didn't know if they have to just agree to something before they get the donation, that they will keep it within their, I just didn't know how we made sure that happened. So that was the question.
Well, if we've had organizations that bridged, maybe it's NWA, and maybe they received funds and we can't be certain that the funds are going to stay in Bella Vista. But according to this new policy, they would not qualify.
And we could add something again to the application process that they sign and say, by signing this application, I attest that the funds will be used as described in this policy.
And that's great.
Yeah, I think that would be great personally.
Yeah, that's perfect.
The other side of that, though, is some nonprofit organizations, that's what they're in business for, and they do donations, and that's part of their operating expenses, in a way. So I think maybe what you just said might help. This is really, as you said, a go-by, a checklist for the committee, right?
We're trying to give them better tools than they had at their disposal.
Yeah.
Not just because over time we've learned, from when we first created this.
Jeff, are you there?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Yes, I'm here, and my vote was to affirm. I just couldn't figure out the new safe driving mode on Zoom. I had a thought, though, as far as the committee, would it be beneficial to word or have something that the committee may choose to give priority to worthwhile projects, when they have a specific over just a general funding? Or is that just kind of redundant?
Well, worthwhile is kind of subjective.
That's true. But it'd be up to the committee's discretion, I guess, in my opinion. Like this year, they gave the $7,500 for the Boys and Girls Club. Obviously they can already do that, but would it be helpful to tell people on the front side that are requesting donations that they could be given? It might be helpful if they gave a specific problem that they were trying to solve.
Yeah.
That is in the question. I mean, they do ask the use of the funds. I think one of the things we just need to coach the committee on is it's okay to say no.
Oh,
There
right.
you go. There you go.
I think
you don't
that,
have to give something to
yeah,
everybody.
I think it's okay to say no. Yeah.
Okay, I'm fixing to join y'all. Apologize for being late.
Okay. Jerry, what else do you think? Can you think of? Oh, there he is.
Actually, as this goes forward in the application process, Jeff, in the application process, a lot of the stuff that we were going to add, that you add that clause, Doug, that goes in there, I guess, put it short, I think we're covering all the bases.
Yeah.
And if you give a gift's a gift. If they've stated how it's going to be used, we can't police them.
There you
So,
go. Yeah.
I'm good.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good point. So that's
I
the,
can make that every once in a while.
no, that was a real good point. I mean, you can give money at church and you don't know exactly where it's gonna go.
There you go.
That's true.
You know, you hope it goes the right place, but
Yeah.
can't be certain.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad we're tightening it. I think
Yeah.
it was time to bring it into this world today. Okay.
The,
Jackie, any other questions on that one?
No, I'm good, thank you.
And then the additional notes at the end, some of this was already in there, about the recusal if you're on multiple
Yes.
boards, the $10,000 limit, but we just talked about this, the grant request may be for capital projects or to offset administrative expenses. That's an add. Oh, Jerry, this is kind of what you're talking about, maybe, or maybe it was Jeff. Sorry, it was Jeff. Charitable Giving Committee is encouraged to award funds that will be of the greatest positive impact on the members of Bella Vista. So that's kind of what you said.
Just devil's advocate a little here. What about the 10,000? Could that be lower? Why 10,000?
Because that's the number we arbitrarily selected 8 years ago when we created the policy.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, maybe, I don't know. Ignore me. I'm just.
No, I think you know what, in most cases, the average charity is receiving $5,000. But if there was a really compelling
Yeah, okay.
project or something like that,
Yeah.
I think that, let's give the committee some flexibility. If they're, you know, if the museum was within $10,000 of getting enough funds for their expansion,
There you go.
well, yeah, that would make sense. Let's go to $10,000 on
Okay.
that. So I think we've tried to create some additional parameters for the committee, but I still think we need to let the community make some wise decisions on their own.
And I only brought that up in case it comes as a question from somebody else out there as we go forward. So I thought we should explain it.
Yep, I agree.
A similar question about the max of 25 for the whole giving, is there, that's been like that for a long time.
So we don't include in here how much, because the 25 is determined at the budget time frame.
Oh, yeah.
We've been at 25,000 for several years. I mean, you could make the argument that maybe we should bump that up because of inflation and everything. It could be less. When we went through the Trafalgar fire and we were cutting back on expenses, we made it zero that year. I'm sorry, it was in the budget for 25,000, but we eliminated it from spending for that year. So we didn't put in here $25,000 because we want to give the board flexibility that they could make it higher or lower.
And as you said, it's part of the budgeting process.
Yep.
Okay. Good answer. Ready to go on to the next one, or are there any more questions on this one? We good? Jackie? Did we lose you? I think we did. We lost her.
Oh, we lost her.
Okay, let's go on to the next one.
My apology. But I'll catch up on it later. I'm sorry, somebody hit my button.
No, I just asked the question, is there anything else on this one, or can we go forward to the next topic?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
So the next one is the director election process, and what I have on my screen is an older version. We've made some upgrades since then, but the one on your tablet is the current one. So so what we did on this one, so we saw this one, I think, did we see this one beforehand? Jessica, did we go over this one last month? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the change on this, unfortunately, is we we beefed up the candidate qualifications. Okay, and so I'm a member of a professional organization, CAI. They have 45,000 members, and we have a forum where you can share information. And I was reading some dialogue on board candidate qualifications, and a couple of things really got my attention. And so we already went through one vote on this one, and we're recommending some additional changes, which would be significant enough that would require us to go back to the first vote.
Yeah.
So here are the current qualifications, and we're going to talk about the ads. So the first one is candidate must be a member in good standing. Of course, I mean, you have to be a member, and you have to be in good standing. If someone's not paying their assessments, they shouldn't be on the board. The second one is an ad. Candidate must be a member for at least 1 year from date of purchase of an unimproved or improved lot. And we're recommending that we add this because of the complexity of Bella Vista, how large we are. We've had situations where we had some really lovely candidates, but they'd only been here for 2 months, and they were just
Lost.
a little bit lost,
Yeah.
and we'd want them, in a perfect world, to volunteer for a committee. You bring us that motivation. Be motivated about moving here, but let's have you be on a committee for a little bit, and then let's go to the board. And so we're recommending it at least 1 year living in Bella Vista. It cannot be a paid employee. Has been there. It cannot be an elected official. We changed the word on there. It previously was elected officer, but we were like, Doug and I were like, okay, so who exactly is an officer of the city? Is it the mayor? Mayor's probably an officer, but is a city council member an officer? We weren't right 100% sure, so we went with official, elected official. That clearly incorporate, it probably is not a good idea to have a city council member also a board member. That's probably a conflict there.
Well, and they are paid.
And they are paid.
And they are paid.
So-
Yeah.
Next one is cannot be a party to an active lawsuit against the association. So clearly, the board, when we're in the middle of a lawsuit, or not one right now, we're in the board has meetings, and they talk about defense strategies, and we've had meetings with lawyers, and they go over it. And if the person that's suing us is part of that meeting, holy cow,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
So now notice we use the word active
Active.
lawsuit. So if someone has sued us previously and they're not currently suing us, then that's a different story. The next one is cannot be a convicted felon in the last 10 years. So we previously had it listed as a felon, and based upon the reading that I did on this, is they recommended a cap of 10 years. So you can envision a person steals a vehicle when they're 18 and has a felony, and they're now 60. Are we going to hold that against them for an error they made when they were a kid? I think from a legal point of view, it's going to be more defensible to make it in the last 10 years. I guarantee you this is people within the community do research on our candidates, and if someone had a truly egregious felony, it would come out very quickly within our community and social media and everything. So if it was murder, something like that, well, I murdered the person 11 years ago, so I can run for the board. Yeah.
See, before it just said cannot be a felon.
Yeah.
And I like that. I have trouble with 10 years. I'm sorry. I'm thinking it should be more than that, but that's just me.
So Doug, talk about the defensible position.
Yeah, it's just like an unlimited ban against that would have been shot down by the courts. They typically they want to see a limit, and obviously it would depend on what the felony is and that sort of thing, but it's much easier to defense if you have a fixed termination date instead of just saying you're never able to do it again.
But what about 20 instead of 10?
You can do 20. It's half as defensible as 10. Just kidding. It's not like a bright line rule,
Yes.
right? But it
Yeah.
would be a little less defensible than what 10 years would be. But 20 years
Why?
it could be up for debate.
Why?
Just from what like the example that Tom gave, if it was a foolish mistake when they're younger, and
That part I get. It
And
just
I'm not trying to
bothers me.
downplay someone that's got a
Yeah.
felony. I
Yeah.
mean, a felony is a pretty serious issue.
Yeah,
We're just trying to make it defensible. You could also make the argument, hey, they've served their time. They've been punished, they've served their time. Can we continue to
punish them for
Punish
something
them.
that they.
have we ever had anybody that applied that was a felon?
other than yourself?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
No, we've never had it, and so we haven't had that situation. But we just want to have a defensible position and a reasonable decision. If you dislike it, we can.
Yeah, what did the other committee members think?
Yeah, I especially want to hear
I
from
have a
Jeff.
thought, and just bounce it off of you. 10 years from completion of adjudication, like, if a guy just goes off parole 2 years ago, is that somebody we would want?
Right.
I don't know, typically they don't stay on parole that long, but they can, potentially.
I just don't want to be. I don't want to make it more complicated. Like,
Yeah.
well, if it's a capital crime, then
Yeah.
it's 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
a
Class
lesser,
8 felony, class Y, yeah, I get you there.
I don't want to go
I just-
down that road.
I mean, I know there's absolutely people out there that would fit the criteria of what your example was. And to your point that it would be vetted out in the process and blown up on social media, you're probably right on that. If
Yeah,
you've done something
yeah.
egregious, so. If somebody wrote a hot check for $700 and got prosecuted on it 10 years ago, okay? I mean, am I gonna be as worried about that as I am somebody?
yeah.
I mean, so, anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I mean, 10, I follow the point of you've gotta be able to defend it in
Defendable.
court.
Yeah.
So,
And that's why we have Doug.
Yeah.
Doug's the one that comes in and says, look, if I have to defend this in court, I want to make sure we win.
Yes.
And so 10 years is he feels reasonably strong that if we ever were challenged, and
Okay.
we may never get challenged on this one.
Yeah.
We hope we never get challenged, but we at least want to put him in a position where has the most chance for success.
Jerry.
I think that the way we've talked about it, that the community would be really come to on that.
Yeah.
Today's time, anything is possible. From what I've seen on the news and stuff like that, some of them shocked me. But yeah, if somebody had a really grievous type felony, I don't think they'd ever make it if they even tried, and I don't think they would apply, to be honest. But I can see somebody that, as a kid, had something happen, DWI, that
Yeah.
involved somebody's death or something like that. That person has the ability to change over time. So I think it's fine with the 10.
Okay. Well, I just think it's worthy of discussion because it's new. Okay.
The next one about the registered sex offender, that is not changed. And we think that one's more defensible because they have to continue to register. So it's not, there's not an end date.
Right.
So, and it's pretty egregious. And then we added the phrase "for cause" on the next one. A director that has been removed from the board for cause is prohibited from serving on or running for the board for 3 years. So it's clearly for cause. They've been removed for cause.
So where'd the 3 years come from? I'm sorry, I'm just being very
That was
challenging today.
That was in there previously.
I know.
So it's been there a couple of years. The discussion that took place at the time that this was adopted was, if you've been removed from the board, for cause, you've done something to justify your removal. Okay, and that there needs to be some level of removal from the board. So, you know, what would be challenging is, God forbid, someone did something enough to get removed from the board in September and then gets reappointed to the board 9 months later on the next term. Have they really internalized that they've been removed from the board for cause, for a justifiable reason, or at least in the minds of the board for a justifiable reason? So the board at that time discussed the issue and felt that a 3-year period was reasonable. There was discussion at that time that it should have been longer, you know, all the way up to you can't ever serve again. There was discussion about making it 5 years, and I think Doug jumped in and said, similar to the last argument, 3 years is defensible. It's reasonable, it's defensible. So if we ever went to court, you know, making it forever is probably not reasonable and not as defensible. We felt at the time 3 years was reasonable and defensible.
So what about 5 years? Don't tell me half of whatever.
Another reason for that was is it's a full cycle of the board. So
Okay.
in theory, you know, every year 3 people get replaced. So by the 3rd year, that board would have had the opportunity to turn itself over.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone is removed for cause from the board, they've typically violated the trust of the other board members in some way. So that allows for a full turnover of the board and gives that person another opportunity. Again, that's a reasonable reason that we talked about and we vetted,
Okay.
and we felt like that was 3 years was very defensible. 5 years, I think you could make an argument for that, but 3 years felt good for that
Well, the
reason.
turnover is a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, yes, tying it to the length of the term, I think that makes sense. And you know, I sent you that court case just recently, that because we get updated on different court cases throughout the United States, Doug and I through CAI, and you know, the things that you learn is some of the cases are completely justifiable, but man, there is a lot of cases with board people with a lot of money that have a bone to pick and want to sue.
Yeah.
And so is it possible that we could be the target of someone that has a bone to pick and that has a lot of money and wants to sue? And because some of the cases they go all the way to the state Supreme Court, and they are trivial.
Yeah.
And we just don't want to.
Okay.
So we want to put ourselves, I guess where I'm going with this, we want to put ourselves in a position where it's reasonable, it's defensible.
Yep.
And so that we can prevail if we're the target.
Okay.
So with these changes then impact multiple other policies. So like the policy regarding the appointment of a replacement director then gets impacted by these changes, because these changes fell in for last 10 years, all those would go into effect, or would be impacted. So these changes have a broader impact. So it's going to impact. So on the agenda, it says previously discussed new policies with additions. So you have 2.09, which gets changed as a result. So the board voted on this, approved the changes, and then we're asking, and this one we actually have up on the board, it's exactly the same changes. So appointment of interim director, and we went through and said, okay, here you go, these are the changes. The same thing for the bylaws. It was lined out in the bylaws. There we go. And there we go. We made this change in there. So it impacted multiple areas. So since these changes are significant enough, they have to go back to a first vote.
To the first vote.
Yeah.
Okay. First reading, first vote. Okay.
And then we have the other ones, which are policy 2.10, the declaration summary, the articles of incorporation summary, and the policies. All those are the smaller changes, which are about Blue Crane and my title and so forth. Those have already gone through a first vote. This would be for a second vote.
Okay.
So what I would request of the committee is a vote to move forward on the top four, which is policy 1.03.4, policy 2.11, policy 2.09, and the bylaws.
Okay. Can anybody remember that long enough to?
So moved.
So moved, he says.
Well, unfortunately, we're gonna have to go one at a time,
Yeah.
because a person could have an issue with one of the policies, but not the other policy. So how about proposing that we move forward the recommendation on policy 1.03.4?
1.0.
So moved.
Yeah, so moved. There we go.
A second.
Okay. Jackie, any questions?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay,
No.
so all in favor of moving that one forward? You too,
Yes.
Jack? Okay, good.
And then policy 2.11, which is a new policy.
I make a motion that policy 2.11, director's election process, be moved to the board for a vote.
Second.
Any questions, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Yes,
Okay.
And then policy 2.09.
I make a motion that we vote to move to the board for vote policy 2.09, appointing an interim director.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion on that before we go to a vote?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
Yes,
And then the bylaws, changes to the bylaws.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the bylaws of the Bella Vista Village Property Owners Association go to the board for vote for the changes associated with them.
Yep.
Jeff seconds, okay. Okay, if no discussion, then all in favor?
yes,
Okay,
Okay, and then the remaining ones, which are the ones that are going for a second vote, they don't require an additional vote from the committee. We just include those on the agenda in case a board member has reconsidered after the month and they have an issue or something like that. So we at least include it on the agenda, and if anybody brings it up, that's great.
Okay.
The last item is, this was a email discussion about qualifications for committee members. And Jackie had asked this question, and in reading through the qualifications, I realized and Jackie pointed this out, that we potentially have an issue in that the policy currently requires that we do a background check on committee members. For board members, which are clearly a higher level, absolutely a background check. I mean, how are you going to determine if a person's got a felony or not? For a committee member, I don't think we need that. I don't think we are currently not doing background checks on committee members. So first of all, we either need to change the policy or need to change do the task.
Yeah.
I would probably argue that for a committee member, well, you wouldn't want a convicted murderer on a committee.
Jackie, could I ask you what brought this to your attention?
I just wondered if we needed to be uniform with the board and that whatever we say in the policy we do. The way the first paragraph's worded, where it says that they need to fill out a background check authorization form, I think that's okay. And then option 2, numeric, I don't think that we have to do the background check unless for some reason we felt like it was necessary.
That's exactly right, Jackie. It doesn't, again, that was another reason for giving some leeway there, is they fill out the authorization form, but we don't necessarily have to do the background check. That first sentence probably makes it seem like that's the case, so we fix that a little bit, but yes, it does give the option for that when they're filling out their paperwork.
So I was.
But JB, I guess I didn't really answer your question, because what really made me ask is I was curious if the JAC members had to be a member longer than a year, like we're requiring the board directors to do, because I don't think that should be necessary, but it is not a requirement. They just have to be a member of good standing. So that's what prompted the question, but then when we saw there were other requirements, then it raised the question about the background.
Okay.
I think
was
having
curious.
the lesser requirements for a committee member is totally acceptable.
Agree.
And I would agree, if you have a brand new member that wants to bring in fresh ideas, I think having them on a committee makes total sense. I just don't, but I would argue against that point if it was for the board. And 1 year is, we keep on using the same term, reasonable and defensible. So I guess the question is, do you want to, we can kick this back and Doug and I can work on the wording on this, if you want to.
I don't have a problem with the wording of it.
No, I don't either.
We've
okay
given
with it?
ourselves the option
With what he just
to
said.
run it
Yeah.
if needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
and it
I
may
agree.
be
It looks to me
misinterpreted
like-
that they're gonna run a background check,
Right.
which I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because then that's gonna weed people out that know they've got something to hide
true.
to start with.
What, Jackie?
I was just going to say that I think the first sentence of number 2, following the completion of the background check, that infers to me that you did it. And I think that we should change the wording to say, if necessary, after the completion of the background check, blah, 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 or just something. But whatever the group decides is fine.
Well, do you want to,
Delete that part about the background check, just say the application, supporting doctors will be provided.
That would fix it.
Yep.
so someone didn't.
Say it again.
Someone doesn't have their,
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
So if you just remove following the completion of the background check, if you just remove that part, and so number 2 starts out with the applications and supporting documents will be provided to the committee for consideration. So the supporting
I think
documents,
that's-
if
Yeah.
it included a background check, would be included and submitted. So that's a good suggestion, Jeff.
I agree.
Okay,
You know, all right, so I got an idea that just came off the top of my head.
uh-oh.
It's dangerous.
It's just never good. How about if Doug and I take this one back? Because right now, there is no uniformity between the committees on how they select committee members.
Okay,
And we get questions and they do it different ways, and I hate to be in a situation where I mean, Jessica gets requests and people are like, yeah, I'd like to be on the rec or golf. I'd be like, I'm fine either way. And God forbid they went through the approval process and it's different, and they're like, well, why did you do it this way? Maybe we need to, in the spirit of what we've been trying to accomplish over the last couple of months, is let's take this one back, let's do a rework on this, and let's standardize, and I'll consult with the committee chairs on, hey, if we change the selection process in this way, are you guys okay with that?
I agree.
Yes.
I think they should be
make it uniform.
Which number is this
It's
again?
1.04.
1.0, okay.
Okay, we'll bring this back next month. And as I indicated, we'll consult.
That makes sense. Okay, that's all. And
That's enough.
we have on here open forum. Were there any emails? Nothing? So we can close the open forum, right? Any other discussion at all about anything before we adjourn? No? So it looks like our next meeting is Thursday, October the 10th at 1:30. Because we do have stuff on the horizon, so I think it's important to meet again soon. With that, we're adjourned.